Hello, this is a sort of a review, I suppose, rather than an unboxing. If you look online for reviews about the Yoga ThinkPad 11e, I couldn't really find any, and I couldn't really find any YouTube videos about it either. There were a couple of Lenovo promo ones, but none of them really describe the device in any sort of practical detail, or from a point of view of someone who's bought one. Obviously they're trying to sell it to you. So I thought I'd do this. First of all, it's important to note that Lenovo designate this as part of being their educational series, so I think because the way the IT industry is, they divide it up into various channels, and these channels are deliberately kept apart. So educational machines are distinguished from business machines, which in turn are distinguished from home sort of consumer devices. This is the educational one, so that's probably why it hasn't been reviewed in the mainstream press and why there aren't any YouTube videos about it. But I wouldn't let that discourage you, because as we're about to find out, it is actually a pretty funky little device. So let's have a look at it. Here it is. This is the 11e. It's got the charger in, which comes with it obviously. Nice little screen, 11.6 inch screen. Touch screen, multi-touch, 10-point multi-touch. There's quite a border on it, and I'll just check you can see it. There's quite a lot of reflection in it, but that's fairly standard for modern touch screens because they have the touch sensitive layer on top of the panel itself, so you get sort of multiple layers of glass, which in turn mean that you get, well, not glass, but you know what I mean, which in turn means that you get lots of reflections. Other thing to notice is that the keyboard is similar to the Lenovo keyboards, which in my opinion are one of the best keyboards on any laptop you can get. The keyboard is brilliant, especially the backlit ones. This one isn't backlit, but it is sort of tamper proof. Remember, this is designed for education environment, so little kids with their pens and just idly clicking at the keys aren't going to flick one off, because that's very easy to do on any other kind of laptop. So they spent a bit of time thinking about that. The next thing is that the edges of the lid and the lid itself are different to a conventional laptop. The edges are rubberized, so that's got a impact protection on it. The lid itself is a lot more substantial than you would get on a conventional laptop, so much so that if I lift it from a corner, you get very little flex in the screen, because normally when you have a laptop and you open it from the corner, the whole thing bends up as it goes into place, depending on how stiff the hinges are. So that's obviously been reinforced. The whole chassis itself feels substantial. It's a metal chassis. It doesn't flex if you hold it from one corner. It's a really rigid device, and I suppose that's kind of what you're paying for, really, because it is expensive for a small laptop. This model has got the SSD in it, and it's got the 8GB RAM upgrade, and it came in at about 500 quid, something like that. They start at about 410, 420. This one has got Windows 8.1 rather than 8.1 Pro, because I don't join domains, so there's no point having the Pro. I did mention hinges on other laptops. The hinges on this one are different, because this is the Yoga one. So if I bend the hinges, oh look, it's tablet. That's kind of nice, but it is a heavy tablet, and that's yeah, you don't want to be holding that for very long. But it is a tablet nonetheless, so when you're moving from room to room, you can fold it back and sort of carry on watching your video while you're doing it. On another note, see, it's quite strong. There's no flex in it. It's designed to take a certain amount of abuse. There it is in tent mode, and you can have it in presentation mode like that. So it's got the yoga features, which Lenovo are kind of getting sort of famous for, really. And it's got the multi-touch screen. So let's turn it on and let's have a little play with it. Power button's down the side there. You have to give it a good press so you can't accidentally turn it on. It should just boot up. And there it goes. and that's it booted. This is the SSD version. The mechanical version, as mentioned in a previous video of mine, is a completely different experience. It takes a lot longer for it to boot up. The SSD it boots up in seconds. Obviously Windows 8 cheats a little bit and uses sort of a hibernation mode, heavy on the hibernation really, so that it loads up faster. But with the SSD it really does load up faster. It is very, very quick indeed. That obviously is going to be a distinct advantage. And with the SSD, and of course, it is more ruggedized too, because the mechanical drives don't like being dropped. Touchscreen itself, very responsive, kind of like that. There's a few little iffy things with some of the software they put on it. Like most manufacturers, Lenovo are pretty keen to bundle it up with rubbish. The Lenovo settings, there's a few forum pages on that where it sticks and it goes into updates that never finish. If you use it as a tablet, then that's quite useful because you can turn things off. But then obviously with the keyboard, there are keyboard shortcuts for most of the things anyway, so I question the validity of that. And they will obviously install that on all their laptops, so everybody is going to find something annoying about it, in addition to having useful features, because you can sort of tell applications what to do when it's in various yoga modes, whether it's a full screen or not. So that might be useful. But I think, like most software that's bundled on these machines by the manufacturers, mainly for branding purposes, I think it could obviously be taken off. When this has got a plain vanilla version of Windows 8.1 on it, it absolutely flies. So there is quite a lot of junk that they put on it. But having said that, it's still a very nice laptop. Now, for benchmarking purposes, which we'll come to next, I wouldn't bother really. For Valley, you get a FPS score of 3.2 and a score of 134, which is not massively impressive. An i7 with a GTX 980, for example, gets 126.9 and a score of 5,310. Yeah, so you're not going to be playing the latest AAA titles on this, but obviously it'll play web games and it'll play the older games, the GOG type things. There's no games on it at the moment, but the processor is a Celeron N2930 running at 1.8 gigahertz. It's got quad core, which is quite good. In terms of actual processor benchmarks rather than graphics benchmarks, that processor is very similar to the i3, the lower end i3. So if you're worried about, you see the word Celeron, and a lot of people tend to think, oh, a Celeron, and run. With this particular one, which is the newer versions of the mobile processors that Intel have released, it's actually comparable to a low-end i3. So if someone said have an i3 laptop, you jump at it. The i3 is a superior processor, but in terms of benchmarking, it's only slightly ahead in some of the benchmarks, and in most of them they are equal. So if you were worried about seeing the word Celeron, don't be. This is the quad core, 1.83 gigahertz, very, very fast, very, very quick, and I kind of like it, and comparable to an i3, as I mentioned about 8 times, just to reinforce the fact that it's comparable to an i3. So don't be scared when you see the word Celeron. This is actually quite a nippy, powerful device. It's not going to break any speed records, but you can't out-type it, and you can't, for a work machine, it's going to be very, very good. I'm going to use it out in the field. But obviously Lenovo have the education sector in mind, so in terms of students using this, it'll do everything that a student will want to do, apart from the games obviously. So don't be too concerned. As I mentioned, this is the 8 gig version, and it's got the 120 gig SSD in it. I think the SSD is pretty much essential. When you have everything set up and when it's all installed, you get 57.5 gig free. Because of the recovery partition and other guff that's on there, the actual drive that you get to use, even though it says 128 gig, is actually 92.2. Again, I'm only mentioning that so that you know how much space you've got. 57 gig for me, free, is going to be fine. This is pretty much just out the box. I haven't made any tweaks to it. I haven't optimized it in any way. I think I'll do a separate video on that. All I've done is install the value benchmark and run it. Everything else is pretty much, you know, I've set the account up obviously. I've configured it so it automatically logs me in as well, because that obviously, well, you'll be able to see the full boot process then, rather than having to pause while I type the password in. So apart from that, it's playing as Lenovo intended, straight out the box. So 58 gig free on the hard drive. If you've got a massive music collection, that's not big enough. It's just something you need to be aware of. Obviously you can wipe the drive and, you know, put Windows on yourself. The license key is embedded in the BIOS, so provided you get a suitable image file, either to boot from USB or to boot from an external DVD drive, because this obviously has no drives on it, then you're going to get a lot more free, not 120, but, you know, 110 after formatting. So that's one thing to consider, but for me, 58 gig is going to be fine. I'm not going to use any more than that. So what's it like? Well, if we go onto YouTube, I mean, you can see while I'm using it here that it's actually quite nippy. I'll just twiddle it round so that you get a better view of what I'm doing. So we'll just go to YouTube and we'll search for me. But I'll spell it right. There it is. There's me. So we'll find the video. That's touchscreen. Ooh. Touchscreen is actually great. I find it really responsive. Let's put the volume up.
Short video about the Lenovo ThinkPad YOGA 11E.
Yeah, fascinating. Let's mute it. So there's YouTube obviously running fine. There's no reason why it shouldn't. Let's bump it up to full screen so you can get the full effect. It's got Intel HD graphics, which are perfectly adequate for what the kind of device it is. But you obviously have to be mindful that this is a device that is designed with a certain type of buyer in mind, and that buyer is the educational sector. Which is why if I flip it over, it's got a light on the top there. I don't know if you can see that. That's an activity light for the wireless. So that sort of twinkles if it's being used, so that, you know, the teacher can see that everyone's paying attention or not. So it's got little touches like that that sort of brand it and distinguish it from a consumer product. And remember, because it's an educational channel, most of the magazines will steer well away from it. There are lots of videos about the Chrome version, but the Chrome version is essentially the same, except it's got a lot less storage on it, and of course it uses Chrome. If you're looking for a Windows solution for portability, then this is perfect as far as I'm concerned. But there aren't any reviews, but there is now. I mean, the other alternative for a ruggedized thing, let me just go and get it. Is something like this, and that's obviously a Panasonic Toughbook, and they are about 2,000 quid. So if you're looking for something that's really portable and you want to drive over it in a tank, then you get the Toughbook, but you're going to need big pockets for that. So if you're looking for something that's portable and rugged without spending £2,000, then 11E is the way to go. Hopefully you're going to find this video useful. I'm going to use this every day. I've got to do a few tweaks to it and things. But if you did find the video useful, then obviously you can like it. It would be nice. I'll exit full screen on this. The actual machine itself has reasonable battery life, which is something that's just occurred to me. I'm ad-libbing a little bit, there's no script for this. It doesn't last forever, but it's still reasonable. You get about 5 hours roughly, sort of four hours if you're doing, if you're a bit slack with things. You can obviously dim the screen to save a bit of power as well. It's on full brightness here so you can see it. Notice that when you're using the top buttons, by default the little symbol bits, the brightness and the volume, that's what works. So you haven't got to press function and do that, which is kind of annoying on most laptops. It all works. I mean, if you want the function keys, then you press function. So that role has been reversed. That's pretty cool. That just shows the sort of thought that's gone into this. So with the battery life not being, not 8 hours, 10 hours, it's not an iPad or anything. Or, the battery's quite small because the device itself is quite small. But 5 hours is still reasonable. What I've done is, and we'll look at some accessories for it now, is I bought a few other bits and bobs to go with it. So if we flip that over into temp mode, and we'll just stand it up there. See, I'm chucking it about a little bit. I'm not being too rough with it. First accessory we'll look at is the in-car charger. Because when you're out and about, charging it up in the car is going to be essential. You get a little bag to put it in. You get the charger itself, which fits into the accessory socket. It's not called a cigarette lighter anymore, it's the accessory socket, 12-volt accessory socket. And you get a little leaflet about, how it works. It shouldn't be that of a problem. That is quite expensive, it's about 50 quid, but it's the only way you're going to be able to charge it up in the car. Which is why I got one. So that's quite a useful accessory. So we'll have a look at something else. Oh, just for the record, they bundle Norton with it. So that'll go. Slip cover. Feels like it's made of like wetsuit material. I don't think it's waterproof. It's reversible. So that's the black side, and there's kind of a red side there. You obviously need to trim off the little Made in China logo on it, but that's kind of nice. So if I shut it up, you just sort of put it in and it zips up and you're a man about town, good to go. That's if you're putting it into a bag. There, that's about £12.50 I think that was. Not too bad. Not amazing, but not too bad. The one that's unique to this particular model is this one. This is the use-in cover. Comes with a bit of paper. Lenovo carrying case. Comes with a strap. Now this is where it gets a bit confusing because it's not really clear which bit goes where. I suppose it would go like that, wouldn't it? But we'll see. So you get your laptop and you sort of put it in there like that. And it's use in because you close it and then you open it again. So it's quite a nice cover. I suppose with that being a spot there to put your mains charger in it, it would probably make more sense to have it in that way round. And you get a bit of a mesh there to help with the, you've got access to the ports there, and that mesh raises it up slightly. So I don't really know which one that's supposed to go. Any suggestions, leave in the comments. But that elasticated bits clip on there, and then you just go, oh yes, here I am, open it up, and away you go. So it's quite funky. In terms of shutdown, because it's the SSD, it does it quite quickly. That's the screen off, a little light will blink, and then it goes off, and that's it shut down. So it's it's about 10 seconds, 6, 7 seconds, something like that. Very, very quick. The final accessory applies to all Lenovo laptop and notebook products that don't have a CD drive. It's the portable CD DVD RW drive. There's some software. USB lead. Here's the device itself. Ooh, coughs. Essentially it's a laptop one in an enclosure. The USB lead has got 2 sockets on it, so it obviously needs dual power for it to work. So it's just occurred to me, yeah, it won't work on the 11E because you've got 1 socket on that side and 1 socket on that side. You haven't got 2 sockets next to each other, so that's not going to work with the 11E because it needs to have 2 sockets. That's rather annoying. So let's just pop that away. So, don't buy the DVD drive because you can't use it on the 11E. What you need is an externally powered one. You can of course plug it into a USB hub and then plug it in, but you can't use it with the 11E because it hasn't got 2 sockets. Let's power it up again and you can see the speed, and then we'll finish. Good firm press, you can't do it accidentally. It boots up quite quickly. At this point you'd be typing in your password, but I set it to auto log in, and there's the start screen. Very, very quick. Flip it over and it's in tent mode. That's quite good. Again, touch screen, very, very nice. Flip it over again and it's in presentation mode. Keyboard is off when it's in those modes. Push it down completely and now it's a tablet. And you can hold it. I think it's got thumb detection, so I've got my thumb on it. Yeah, no it hasn't. See, it's scrolling, zooming in and out. What I've got here is if my thumb's there, it's fine. It's like the edge bit is there for a reason. It's there so that you can hold it when it's in tablet mode. It's not to con you into buying something with a bigger screen when actually it's a small screen. That is actually a thumb rest. So that's kind of useful to know. If you put your finger anywhere on the screen, obviously the touch screen is going to kick in. And that's the phone. So I'll stop now. Any questions, obviously put in comments. Thanks for watching.